Tonight and every night here on ENCA, a variety of different newsmakers will get their chance to host the program. Tonight I get to interview a person who I strongly disagree with in terms of how we should access our schools. We'll give you, the viewer, a chance to get involved in the conversation. Unfiltered, accountable, and accessible. Let's have it out. Starts now. Tonight, the issue on my mind is the Gauteng ready for a non-racial schooling environment. The Gauteng Department of Education has started engaging the public through amendments to the admissions regulations to change the schooling environment for the future. The million-dollar question is whether language is often used as a form of exclusion, or is there a fear that other races will come and dominate, consequently taking over the particular school? Demographics in the communities have changed, and as such, a learner admission to any school in their proximity should not be difficult. The amendments to the admission regulations are clear. There is no justification of using language, ethnicity, race, religion, or financial muscle to exclude learners. Later on the program, I'll be joined by Riaan Van der Bergh from Fedsas, which is the Federation of Governing Bodies for South African Schools. We'll have it out on issue of non-racial schooling in South Africa. And we want you to get involved in the conversation. Hear how.
Tweet us at ENCA using the hashtag LHIO. Call us on 011-759-6340 or send us a WhatsApp or WhatsApp video on 082-884-6370. And make sure those videos are no longer than 30 seconds, please.
Riaan, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Riaan, is Fedsas ready for a non-racial schooling environment?
It's a very interesting question because Fedsas has never been ready for a racial schooling environment. Fedsas is not a racially based organization. Fedsas aims to promote quality education for all in the country. And we do everything in our power to ensure that within the legal framework, a school with its governing body as a steering mechanism of the ship gives quality education to the learners of that school.
But are you afraid that if you open up the African school mediums, are you going to be opening up for other races to come and dominate them?
Sure. Steve, this is a very interesting angle on the discussion, and where I want to start is with the regulations that were being published last week for amendments and public commentary. These regulations are being published as a result of the Constitutional Court case in 2016, in which the MEC was given instruction to demarcate feeder zones for each school in consultation with the governing body of the school. So that's the starting point of this whole situation. So amendments are being proposed to the admissions regulations in Gauteng. So it's a Gauteng-based issue. And the old regulations never allowed for unfair discrimination based on language or on race. It's interesting that it's a race discussion and not a language discussion. Language of learning and teaching is a concept in the legal framework and in the Constitution, and learners and parents have a right to choose the language of learning and teaching of their choice if it's one of the official languages and it's practically executable at that school. So it's not necessarily a race thing that we're talking about, but language has a place in our society.
But do you know that language can be utilized as a form of excluding other races? Because if you were to say you use the Afrikaans and other people don't want to probably access the school through Afrikaans, then how are you justifying that you're not going to accept them in the school.
Yeah, there's no justification of not accepting anyone, and the regulations has been clear about that. There's no basis of not accepting any learner in a school based on language. But the school's language policy is set by the SGB, which is determined in their position of trust, according to Section 16 of the Schools Act. The SGB must operate in a position of trust to the school, and it must consider the community of the school in establishing that language policy. So the language policy is set by the SGB, and any person can apply to that school. No applicant may be shown the door and excluded and discriminated against, but the language of learning and teaching at that school.
But one will still say that you were actually supporting what the World School Overval did by taking the department to court. And in that sense, you were actually justifying what was happening there, because the department was vocal to say, look, it's not an issue of capacity, it's an issue of probably language, because there was, some element of those learners being, jumped, in the queue or in the waiting list.
Yeah, it's an interesting case. The Overval case just recently hit the news again with the Constitutional Court judgment based on it. Yeah, I want to refer back to it, and we can have it out tonight. The Overval case was a capacity issue that turned into a language issue and then escalated to a race issue. The Constitutional Court confirmed it was a capacity issue, and the language issue should have been addressed in the district with other schools that had available spaces for learners. Very interesting that language is not necessarily race. And we're making that connection here tonight, that language, which is a sound, is compared to race, which looks like a color. But in other provinces, language has different colors as well.
But then what's your take with the other groupings that will be saying probably MEC Lesufi is a dictator, it does not consider other groupings, because there's this fear that when you want to access the African schools, it's more like you want to interfere with the culture of the African-speaking people, or, what's your take on that? Because really, it's been vilified, and it looked like it's now personal. Some went to an extent of, personally, attacking him. So what's your take on that?
Yeah. There's no room for personal attack. My take on that is Fedsas is here for quality education. A cornerstone of quality education is that of mother language tuition in early grades. We're not trying to vilify MEC Lesufi. We deal with him, but we want to work within the framework of our constitutional dispensation. South Africa is a wonderful country with a great constitution, and there are language rights and education rights in the constitution, which is further substantiated by the framework of the SGB of a school as set out in the Schools Act. So we're not on a mission to vilify MEC Lesufi, but we want to work within the rules of the game. We're not here to exclude. Our schools should not exclude. We should be an open society. There's 125 odd single medium Afrikaans schools in the province, out of close to 2,000 public schools in the province. So the number.
We'll come back to the number. We'll come back to the number. It seems like we have a caller on the line.
All right.
Ranto from Mamelodi. How are you, sir?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. What's your question?
Yeah. No, I understand the situation. It is not about the racial issue. My question is, how do we deal with the ill discipline of the learners at school, whereby you find out they are threatening to beat up the teachers? And because I'm part of the SGB in Nelliswart, but we are in the process of rooting out the ill discipline, because as the SGB, we are there as the vanguard, the eyes and ears to make sure that the learners get the quality education. It is not, we cannot capitalize on the issue of the racism, because we know that our children are ill-disciplined, and this thing is started at home, whereby you will find out there is a domestic violence in terms of the number 166 of 1988 and the criminal law that is in the Act of 31 of 2007. So now we have to root out the discipline, because we need the quality education for our kids. I don't see any. I have a very dissenting views in terms of racism. We cannot allow that situation. We've passed that level of racism. but let's deal with the learners first.
Thank you very much for that call. And look, it's more about discipline, but we know that recent pictures that we have seen coming from different angles. What's your take on discipline in our schooling environment?
That is turning out to be a minefield. I think parents need to be as involved in the discipline of their children as the school. But once again, the SGB is at the forefront of setting the school's code of conduct in consultation with the school community. And then every learner at that school should comply with that code of conduct. We as Fedsas have been promoting a value-driven school basis for the last few years to say, let's step away from the rules a little bit and teach values, because from values, behavior is dictated. Yeah, but discipline is turning into a problem. I couldn't hear the rest of Ranta's questions.
Going back to the topic now, look, you say you have over 126 African schools.
Single medium, yeah.
Yes. So the argument would be, do you think you still want the status quo to remain where you have African single medium school in this country, where you have demographics that have changed, and there's no area where you have African-speaking people, you know, on their own, residing there? So what's your take on that? Because really, even when you go to your tertiary institution, there's no tertiary institution that offers Africans only. You know that tax, you know, has changed. They are now offering English and Africans. So from the high school level, from the low, you know, primary to high school level Africans, and then when they reach the high institution of learning, then you have them.
Yeah, I can comment on that in two ways. Number one, mother language instruction, I think, is the biggest focus for us. We're not here for an Afrikaans school, but we're also not here for a single medium English school only. We want to see mother language instruction in all official languages in the country. That is one of the best ingredients to a successful learner in the early phases. That's what it's international standards. You know, if all schools in the world follow Finland and Singapore, those learners are not learning English from grade 1, but they learn English parallel to their home language. So the status quo of Afrikaans single medium schools, as opposed to where are the other 10 languages or 9 languages single medium schools in the country, that is our position. We believe. So
you still maintain that your African single medium must continue the way the status quo must just continue?
No, I don't think so. Where a community has changed, the SGB, in its position of trust to that community, must reconsider the language of learning and teaching. And we have various parallel medium schools in the province. But where there are, and I mean it's a feeder zone issue if we go back to the original argument, where we consider the feeder zone situation, it is said that there must be, and the Wifferval case confirmed it, there must be consideration of the proximity of other schools closer to that school that offer different language options. So Afrikaans medium home language or language of learning and teaching choice, parents and learners have that right as well. So do all the other languages, which is the sad case that we are not offering them and not discussing that.
Thank you. Just hold it there. Stay with us. This is Let's Have It Out.